Welcome, friends. This is Diane Young Sussman, and today I just thought I would give another introduction to the Alexander technique. I have been teaching for now 37 years, and it's the most foundational work that I've done. It's a very beautiful, light touch, hands-on technique that helps people become more aware of how they're using their bodies and how they're thinking about how to do their activities. So we call this conscious work or conscious control of the individual. Those were Alexander's words, and he was around, like 120 years ago. So his work is really very connected to everything that we understand about science and movement and coordination today. And he was a real front runner because he really made a discovery about how we organize ourselves, how we use our bodies, how we use our breath, how we really take in our whole environment. And I consider that, ease and poetry and real beauty of our just of our potential as human beings. So I thought I would share my screen and give you just a 15 or 20-minute intro to how we set about doing the Alexander technique. Mostly people do this work either in a group setting with a teacher, Alexander teacher, who's been trained for 3 years, very, very comprehensive training, or private lessons, which is mostly how I work with people, either on Zoom or in person. I live in Philadelphia. I also teach in New Jersey. So you could always find me at bodymindbalance.net. And I'd be so happy to work with you. You can get a lot of work done taking a series of like 8 to 10 Zoom lessons. So pay attention. I hope you're as excited about this as I am. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just share my screen and take you to the top of my slideshow. Okay, so here we go. Um, this is an introduction, as I said. Sorry about the fuzzy picture. I don't know why it came out so fuzzy. But we can, as Alexander technique teachers, really promise that you will free yourself from years of back pain and neck pain. People that have, complained about having piercing knee pain have also really gotten a lot out of studying the Alexander technique because it helps us to really reorganize our bodies, but also sense our whole being, our whole selves in gravity. I've talked a lot about the science behind Alexander technique. It's not woo-woo. It is a full practice of understanding how the neuromuscular skeletal system works, but we do it in a very light touch therapy. So there's a real magical component of actually receiving a lesson. People go away feeling lighter, more coordinated, feeling that, a lot of weight has been released, a lot of pressure has been released from the body. And that's in fact why they experience less pain as these lessons go by. It also promotes a better postural alignment. And how that happens is not coming out of exercise. Again, it's more about our relationship to how we free ourselves within the gravitational field. So I'm not going to be pushing you against the wall and forcing your neck back or the head back into the wall and doing funny things with the neck and head. It's really just taking you for where you are right now. Even if you're in a big slump right now, we can very gently guide the process of coming out of that slump and then being able to maintain it, which is also very, very amazing. That we over time can do some real radical shifts in the way that we use our bodies and the freedom that we get back in ourselves also. So one of the groups of people that I work with are actually older people that are in danger of falling. It's a really, really big problem as people age. And partly what we're doing is we're starting to pull down on ourselves and shuffle. So we reorganize in such a way that you can certainly see what's in front of you and see the obstacles in front of you, but have a way of using all of your joints more effectively so that you will be able to stay in good balance and coordination. So I'm going to briefly talk about the spine. As you can see in this center picture, our spines are very curvy. That's something that we have to keep mindful of. We want to maintain the curves of the spine because the spinal curves actually create a more stable balance than if we were like, if we only had just two curves in our spine, or God forbid, one straight spine, like an arrow going up and down, we wouldn't have much movability available to us. And I talked about Alexander's discovery. His discovery was that when you right the head, when you find the correct balancing of the head on the top of the spine, something really nice happens, which is the spine decompresses and starts to elongate in relationship to gravity, in relationship to the floor. So everything kind of opens and expands, and we start to experience ourselves holistically. So it's a very beautiful mind body, very holistic sense of how we can move through space, sort of like snakes in the grass, right? They do a really good job of moving in space. So a lot of times people will ask me, well, what about exercise? And my answer about exercise is please do it. But when you finish doing your exercises, there you want to bring your body back to the way it's meant to move, like not pulling those bellies in, not throwing the shoulders back and creating a permanent stuck position in the body. So really the question about exercise is great. Let's do it. How do we do it? And you want to be mindful of these Alexander technique philosophies as you're working and keeping the body as free and open and expanded as possible. And keep your breathing going while you're exercising. It's not a it's not an easy answer, but it's something that I've done a lot in my work as an Alexander teacher, because I'm also a Pilates and a yoga instructor. So I've been thinking about these things for a long time. And I have ways of helping people work with their exercises that are very, very efficient for maintaining good function and use of the body. All right. So what is good use of the body? I love this picture. It comes out of Carolyn Nichols' book. I wrote her first name wrong, Carolyn Nichols. It's called Body, Breath, and Being. And yes, we have a body and we want to be aware of our breath. And we also can experience our breathing. And that, I mean, our beingness. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, that the synonym for Alexander technique is poise. We have an ability to really be in our world, in our environment, in a very free and upright and poised way. And this bottom picture is showing you exactly how to do that. So if you were able to come down onto your knees, onto your legs, and sit, there's an orientation of the head and the spine that flows upward. Likewise, look at the other picture, the top picture. If you were creeping on the ground, there's an orientation in gravity that has kind of an up thrust along from the hands upward, from the legs upward from the ground. And there's an elongation of the spine and an orientation. It just makes you want to free up and breathe more fully even to look at these pictures. They're so beautiful. Okay, so here's a technical aspect of the work that I already spoke about just a little bit. And I'm going to show you first this little child. The picture that I have on here is a little bit cut off, but you can see that this little kid has learned how to walk, and their orientation is just kind of in a forward direction, but the head is beautifully balanced on the top of the spine, and the legs are pattering underneath this child. And they figured this out over a period of time because they wanted to be able to reach for the toy, and they kept listening. I mean, all of us have gone through this experience of listening to how not being able to do that happens, which is usually to throw the head back and down, and then they fall back down onto the floor. So they keep reorganizing and researching and practicing these movements of the head in its proper pivoted point in relationship to the spine. And that in turn engages the whole lengthening of the spine. So here's another beautiful picture, and this is really thinking about our evolution. So this little dinosaur here has a beautiful, beautiful balance of this very, very long tail and the orientation of the head, and it's still moving in the same direction. Tyrannosaurus Rex, I believe this is. And the legs are very strong and very grounded. The arms don't really need to do very much. He's a vegetarian. He's gathering his fruits. So that is to say that in all animals, this principle is true. And our anchors are legs, and our arms are free to do the finer activities. And this is, even going back further, the principle exists in fish and amphibians. If you ever thought about how we went from in evolution from the stage of being in the water to being on the ground, it's exactly what is happening. The gills turn into feet as these little amphibians, evolve, and that continues all the way up into the human. So back to exercise class. I just want to make this intro short and sweet and very, very um, productive for you. So again, back to exercise. So let's look at some of these people sitting on the floor with their tennis shoes on, their sneakers on. You can see that they're kind of being pulled back in space. They're not sitting upright on their sitting bones, which would be ideal. Almost every one of them in this picture is pulling back because their hamstring muscles, the muscles in the thighs, on the back of the thighs, are really tight for them, and it pulls on the torso. So this is not an ideal way to be exercising. It would be much more efficient if they were like that, the people in the back sitting on the bicycle or standing upright, which the instructor has the good fortune of being upright because he's not getting pulled back by those muscles. Another practical thing that you could do would be to sit up on a meditation cushion or a pillow or two pillows or even a yoga block, which would give a little bit more height to the hips over the knees. These little things really, really matter because they're promoting more tension in their body, thinking they are doing something really good for themselves, which right in that moment they are not. All right, so some examples of good use. Now, these people clearly have been working on their use and on their form for a long time. Pretty much every single person in this picture is using themselves really well. The man on the right is a little muscle bound in all of the shoulder and arm muscles, but he's still, you can see that beautiful uprightness. And being in a lunge in that way, when you're lunging forward, has taken a lot of work and a lot of skill to get there. And this is just to say that using Alexander technique principles is going to make that easier. So you can be thinking about the uprightness of the movement and still do beautiful exercise. Okay, here's another example of good uses. You can see the person in the front is doing a very complicated form. She's twisted and being able to look up at one hand and maintaining balance in the other, and very stretched out actually in the hamstrings and in all of the leg muscles. So we have this beautiful ability to elongate all the way from the sitting bones, which is, the bottom of the butt, and all the way to the top of the neck, and then being able to lightly turn the head so beautifully and keep the breathing going. So this traditionally is a yoga asana that is held for a period of time, and then you gently come out of it and do the other side. So these are, again, examples of beautiful use while doing exercise. Okay, so the last thing that I'll say, and this is again a yoga asana, this is called tree pose. And we have the ability to have free, balanced, beautiful movement, standing on one leg on the top of a mountain, breathing, and just opening all of our senses to our environment. Remember that it is your birthright to have beautiful, upright posture. And you can develop skill in any exercise plan that you want and still incorporate our principles, which we call awareness, inhibition, and direction. I hope you've gotten some value out of this. And for more learning opportunities, please go to my website, bodymindbalance.net. That's bodymindbalance.net. And I have a lot of article science showing the value of doing this over time, studies that have been done, and some really fun practical things that you can get for free from my website. I really encourage you to enjoy that. And hopefully, I'm going to stop the share now and hopefully start your experience of the Alexander technique. Or if you're one of my students and haven't seen me in a while and you live in New York, because I used to teach in New York, please consider coming back for an Alexander session on Zoom with me. I'd love to see you. I miss you a lot since the COVID days when I had to stop going to New York. All right, everyone. Hope you're well and have a beautiful week. Take good care.